This is actually my first time in Tennessee, and it's been really, really good to be here these last, just a little bit of time, and just struck by a couple of things. One, just very lovely people, and then nature. And I wish I had more time to enjoy both of those beautiful things. I came all the way from Oakland, California. You may have been hearing about us in the news recently. We also been hearing about you. But I came all the way to share one message. And I came all the way here to say, Tennessee, you are not alone. And to me, this is a really important message to be sharing for a few different reasons. One, I can imagine that as environmentalists in Tennessee, you often feel very alone. And that, the fact that we live in a country where the powers that be tend to do things like deny that global warming even exists. And we also live in a country where when we build these great national movements for change, for a green economy, that the movement energy tends to stay concentrated in the two coasts. And so where does that leave states like Tennessee? Where does that leave all of you who are working so hard to build a sustainable economy in this state? I can imagine that it often feels like an uphill battle. So I want to let you know that at Green for All, we see you, and we really like what we see. As a national organization working to build a green economy strong enough to lift people out of poverty, it is part of our mission to make sure that you know that you're not alone. We want to make sure that when you wake up every morning, that you're motivated to continue doing the work that you do because you know that it's part of a larger movement to rebuild this economy in a way that protects instead of destroys our natural environment. And this idea that we are not alone is a very powerful one. But for it to translate into real power, it has to be more than just an idea. This was something that one of the co-founders of Green for All understood on a deep level. Van Jones, a Tennessee native who became a civil rights leader in Oakland, took a deep look at the environmental movement, and he drew a few important conclusions. For one, he concluded that global warming is real, and that it's going to affect all of us, but that it's affecting poor people more. Two, he concluded that the environmental movement is if it is actually going to be able to do something about global warming, that it's going to have to dramatically expand its base. It's going to take, for us to really be able to do something about global warming, it's going to take all of us to do two really important things. One, it's going to take all of us to change our consumption patterns, and it's going to take all of us to participate in a movement to pressure the powers that be to A, admit that global warming is a real life-threatening reality, and B, to shift resources away from a pollution-based economy to a green economy that's designed to clean up this mess that we're in. Van also concluded that if the environmental movement was going to be able to dramatically expand its base, it was going to have to dramatically change its messaging. It had to go from a movement that resonated predominantly with middle-class, liberal folks in certain area codes to a movement that resonated with all our communities, and particularly with low-income communities. He was like, don't go into the hood talking about saving polar bears. And it's not that our communities don't, want to save polar bears or don't care about climate change. Recent polls actually show quite the opposite. The reality, though, is that when our communities are dealing with things like joblessness, not having enough food to eat, mass incarceration, we tend to prioritize our own survival over the survival of endangered species. And this is where the next conclusion comes in. Van Jones and the other co-founders of Green for All saw that a green economy was developing, and that unless we got involved, this new economy was going to leave our communities out just in the same way that previous economies have left us out. And the only people in this country who feel more alone than environmentalists are poor people. People living in communities that have been economically disenfranchised, who've been effectively left out in the cold in this country. So the green jobs movement was designed to make the idea that we are not alone a powerful reality. By linking environmental and economic justice movements, we have the opportunity to not only address both climate change and poverty, we have the opportunity to build solidarity by going beyond the idea that, or not allowing ourselves to be divided by the idea that we have to choose between the environment and good jobs. When Phaedra Ellis Lampkins took over a couple years ago as the CEO of Green for All, this was the task at hand. to make green jobs real for communities across the country. And we all know that this is a lot easier said than done. It takes funding, it takes infrastructure, training programs, market demand, and political will to build up each sector of the green economy. Energy efficiency has been a critical sector of the green economy for several reasons. Improving the energy efficiency of our homes and buildings can significantly reduce carbon emissions. It can also save households and businesses a lot of money on our utility bills, and it can translate into lots of new jobs. But as many of you in the room know, carrying out a citywide energy efficiency program is challenging. It requires effective alliance building, power building, vision, like the speaker before me clearly articulated, and it takes strong community buy-in. In our experience working with cities around the country, the best way to generate support for sustainable development is to be deliberate about engaging communities. It's important to include provisions that extend benefits to workers and low-income communities. It's important to be thoughtful about opportunities for people of color and disadvantaged businesses. It's important to think about how we can engage those who might not naturally line up behind a sustainable economic development agenda. People need to see their needs and interests reflected and need to be engaged and outreach to in a way that speaks directly to their needs and interests. And this is why it's so critical that when we talk about green jobs creation, that we're talking about family supporting career pathway jobs. I think about the food movement right now, and the fact that, the big hunger organizations who do really great work operate on this idea that any calorie is a good calorie when you're hungry. Similar to the idea that any job is a good job when you're out of work. But that's not the reality, and our communities deserve more. Our communities deserve healthy food, fresh fruits and vegetables, and we deserve good, well-paying jobs. This is one of the reasons why we applaud the Tennessee Alliance for Progress for its High Road campaign. Including workforce provisions and sustainability initiatives helps to build a broad base of support, which is so essential to making these programs a reality. The Tennessee Alliance for Progress belongs to our community of practice, our Pathways Out of Poverty community of practice that's focused on energy efficiency. And in talking to my colleague before coming out here, she would say, "Oh my God, it's so exciting, Tennessee. They have so many of the important pieces in place to really have a successful energy efficiency program, a weatherization program that's really going to put people to work." But with all these pieces in place, we still know that there's a lot of work to be done. And to remind you that you're not alone as you continue down this high roads path, linking environmental and workforce issues, I'd like to share a couple of stories from around the country with the understanding that these are your allies in this larger movement. Sustainable Works in Washington State is a nonprofit general contractor, and its goal is to create quality jobs by performing energy efficiency retrofits on 1,800 homes. This will save 11 million pounds of carbon from being emitted into the air. It'll save $1,160,000 in energy bills per year, and it'll create 125 high-quality full-time jobs. Sustainable Works partners with two community-based organizations, the Sound Alliance and the Spokane Alliance, to manage the entire service delivery process, from community organizing, the education and outreach that's so critical in the community, to auditing, to installation, to inspection. And Sustainable Works uses a neighborhood organizing model that results in geographically focused work. They choose certain neighborhoods, reduced costs for customers, and high labor standards for workers. In each neighborhood, Sustainable Works targets 200 homes for over 4 months. It targets neighborhoods where its partner organizations have members, really important for that relationship building, where households are moderate income, where the homes were built prior to 1982 and therefore didn't have to live up to the energy efficiency state building codes, and where a high percentage of residents own their homes. Once it has identified a target neighborhood, Sustainable Works recruits demonstration homes that will serve as models of the improvements the program makes and the savings those improvements achieve. We found that it's really important for neighbors to be able to say, "Oh, they did it and it worked for them. Okay, then maybe I will too." The neighborhood organizing is driven by community organizers and supported by a volunteer force from one of the community-based organizations. And volunteer block organizers go door to door, providing homeowners with information about the benefits of energy efficiency and helping to drive demand for audits that lead to retrofits. Block organizers also mobilize residents to get involved at house meetings that they organize on each block. It's another thing we found. House meetings really help to build those kinds of relationships that are critical to moving people to action when it comes to weatherizing their homes. So that group really focuses, like it said, on moderate income. This last group that I want to share, they focus predominantly in low-income communities. Community Labor United in Massachusetts, or CLU. They're a nonprofit that believes that lower-income communities and communities of color that have been overburdened by the dirty fossil fuel economy must be at the forefront of new green opportunities, and that a sustainable economy must be as equitable as it is green. It seeks to achieve this by involving base-building community organizations and their members and leaders in building momentum, excitement, and buzz in their communities about these new green opportunities. CLU convenes the Green Justice Coalition, and this is so critical, why this conference is so important and the outcomes that are coming out of this conference. The Green Justice Coalition is a statewide partnership of more than 40 community organizations, labor unions, environmental groups, and faith-based groups working to build support for the state's move towards an environmentally and economically sustainable green economy. Thanks to this coalition, Massachusetts and the local utility companies have committed to launching pilot community mobilization initiatives, or CMIs, in several regions of the state. These CMIs use a community organizing approach to delivering energy efficiency work. These pilot initiatives are a novel approach to achieving large-scale energy efficiency work, relying on partnerships among community organizations with long-standing relationships in working-class communities and on responsible contractors who are committed to providing livable wages, benefits, and career pathways for workers. So two critical things there. One is being able to collaborate with utilities. A lot of times that's hard. Utilities often don't, they say they have the best interests of the community at heart, but when it comes to actually negotiating with them, that's not what we find. And so by building that strong coalition of support and doing that community organizing, they were able to pressure the utility into working with them. And so this was not only that, but to demand that the public goods charges that utility charges for energy efficiency, that it actually be used within low-income neighborhoods. And then the other critical piece is this building up of relationships with contractors. And this is one of the ways that we can get a successful high road campaign to be bought into by contractors. So I want to just quickly look at one of their CMIs, one of their community mobilization initiatives. The Chinatown Community Mobilization Initiative is designed to overcome multiple challenges that are faced by low-income immigrant communities. Language barriers, a high concentration of renters in multifamily buildings, high unemployment rates, and low home ownership rates that make Chinatown in Boston one of the hardest neighborhoods for utility-based energy efficiency programs to reach. The Chinese Progressive Association, which is actually a national organization that organizes communities, is the initiative's lead community-based building partner. And with more than 30 years of experience working to improve living and working conditions in the Chinese community and involve ordinary people in decision-making, CPA has deep roots in Boston's Chinatown. They actually have a membership of about 2,000 families. And their role in this community mobilization initiative has been to coordinate the initial education and outreach that's so essential, organize other groups on the ground to support the program, and to also bundle residential homes, multi-unit buildings, and small businesses who are interested in energy retrofits so that they can reduce costs and do it collectively. They go door to door and draw from their networks to perform outreach and to bundle the work. They're also teaming up with the local trade unions to launch a collaborative workforce development program called Chinatown Green Collar Pathways. So in this way, this effort to reduce utility costs, reduce pollution, also is resulting in good jobs for the actual residents of this community. And so part of collaborating with the trade unions means that they serve as apprentices, they get on-the-job training, and they've coupled that with English development skills as well. And so graduates who graduate from that program, they're eligible for immediate hire within the Community Mobilization Initiative's relationship with contractors. That's part of what they've negotiated with contractors. So I share these two examples not to make it sound like the work is easy. At Green for All, we're very clear about the challenges that Tennessee faces. But despite these challenges, I feel very confident that soon communities across this country are going to be looking to you for the insights and models on how to build strong alliances that result in effective, sustainable economic development for all. Thank you.